Hello everyone, and this is Glenda Winkleman, and welcome back to Creative Grandma. This is another Stitch of the Week, and this was a special request from a subscriber who was having trouble with this stitch. This is stitch pattern 225 called the triangle stitch. This is a half double crochet cluster worked across 3 stitches and then a row of single crochet. So if you've never done that type of stitch before, it can be a little confusing if you're not used to reading instructions. Now I do list the instructions for this pattern at the end of the video, and I also list my email address, which it is best to directly email me at my address instead of leaving your email address in the comment section, because sometimes I get so many emails that I'm concentrating on trying to answer the emails that I miss the comments sometimes with your email address, because sometimes there's just too much for me to just go over it. Like I said, it gets a little overwhelming sometimes, but anyhow, directly email me is the best way to get a pattern. This is a pretty simple pattern. Once you get the hang of it, the cluster may be a little hard if you're not used to doing it, but it's only a 2-row repeat, and that's what makes it a nice pattern to work on. This is my first sample. I have 3 samples. I always like to show you the difference of what a stitch color or a skein of yarn can do. So I did forget to grab my yarn, because sometimes people ask me what colors and what brands of yarn did you use for that sample. So let me grab them and I'll be right back. Okay, for this sample, now for all my samples that I'm going to show you, they were all Red Heart Super Saver colors. Now this one is soft white. I used for the single crochet rows, and then I used Red Heart Super Saver in the color 310 Monette, or Monette, or however you say it. But this is the yarn. Let me zoom out a little so you can see it a little better. So this is the yarns I used for this sample. So you can see how pretty the blending of that multicolored yarn is. Beautiful, beautiful stitch pattern. But look at the difference when you just use a solid off-white. This is soft white, but look at the difference between those stitches. It looks, how can I show this? It looks like a totally different pattern. It just completely looks so different. And then my third sample, I seen this yarn, Red Heart Super Savers. It's called Primary Stripes. It's color number 3954, and I was really interested in seeing how this yarn works up, something different. So I made this sample. The only thing I didn't like, but see, this is a small sample, but it all depends. When you buy a skein of yarn, you never know how it's going to work up until you use some of it. So this is 28 stitches across, and it worked beautifully here, but then on the end, all the beautiful colors stayed on the end. It almost looks like a flag or something. But I didn't like how that did that. I mean, I love the pattern with the blacks and the bright colors. If you decided to make a scarf or something, you could work with this until you got just the right amount of stitches to make that color change stay like that. But yeah, I didn't quite like how that changed. But if you're making a larger Afghan, this is as far as the color changes go. So I'd say that's about 5 inches across. So every 5 inches your color changes with this yarn. But it's a beautiful yarn. I bet you that would look beautiful with granny squares. But okay, I'm getting off track because that's what I do when I start talking. But these are our 3 samples, and this was, again, this is all one skein. This is all one color. No changing colors here. It was just called the Primary Stripes. So as you can see, a really big difference in what your Afghan or your scarf or, you know, whatever you're going to make will look like. So use your imagination, get creative. The only thing I didn't do was do one with a solid color change, but this is what it would look like if you did do a color change just on this side. Okay, so let's get this pattern started. For my sample, I love this color, Red Heart Super Saver Turquoise. It's such a beautiful shade of blue, and it shows up really well on the camera. So you're going to need your skein of yarn, and you don't have to use what I use. You don't have to use Red Heart Super Saver. You can use a lightweight yarn with a smaller hook, whatever you choose to do. The other thing I wanted to tell you is sometimes people will say, well, can I use a smaller hook? Of course you can use a smaller hook. The reason I used a size 10J hook, so you'll need your yarn. If it's Super Saver, I'm using a 10J, but you don't have to use that size hook. You can go smaller. I use the larger hook because I want you to see the detail of the stitches, and that's kind of why I'm always going with those I's, J's, the I and J hook, just so it shows the stitches a little nicer and you can see them better. So get your yarn, grab your hook. Now I'm using a 10J or 6mm, and you're going to need to chain 20. So go ahead and get your chain 20 ready, and I'll be right back. I have my chain 20 ready. So we're going to do row 1, which is a simple single crochet row for our base row. You're going to skip this first chain and work your first single crochet into the second chain from hook. Insert your hook, yarn over the hook, pull it through that chain, yarn over the hook, and pull it through 2 loops. This is your first single crochet. You're going to insert your hook into the next chain, yarn over the hook, pull it through that chain, yarn over the hook, and pull it through 2 loops, and you've just made another single crochet. So for this row, just make 1 single crochet into each chain across. You can see each chain. So go ahead and just insert your hook into the next chain, work your single crochet, insert your hook into the next chain, work a single crochet. Repeat that across to your last chain. I'll meet you there at the end of row 1. I'm at the end of row 1, and this is what your work should look like. Just 1 basic row of single crochet. So we're going to begin row 2, which is the first row of the repeat. So this pattern is a 2-row repeat, so you will be repeating rows 2 and 3 throughout for the repeat. So for row 2, you're going to chain 3. The first 2 chain is your half double crochet. That counts as your half double crochet, and we have 1 extra chain. You're going to turn your work, and now we're going to begin what we call the triangle stitch, or a 3 double crochet cluster. So what you're going to do is, you can see that your chain 3 is here and it lines up with this edging stitch here. So we're going to skip this stitch here. So if you turn your work, this here, if you're not sure, turn your work over. This is your first stitch, and sometimes the new people might get confused because when you turn your work over, it does look like that's a stitch, which it is, but it's your first stitch. That's the one you're going to skip. So basically, when you start this triangle stitch, you're going to be working over here in this next stitch. Just follow this down. That's your first stitch. We're going to skip that first stitch, and we're going to begin our triangle stitch. Yarn over the hook. You're going to insert your hook into that next stitch, yarn over the hook, and pull it through the stitch. So now you have 3 loops on the hook. So what I do is I call this the first leg of the triangle stitch. You're going to put the yarn over your hook. You're going to insert it into this next stitch. Yarn over the hook and pull it through that stitch. So now you're up to 5 loops on your hook. And that is what I call the second leg of your triangle stitch. You have a total of 3 legs. We're going to do it one more time into this next stitch here. You're going to put the yarn over the hook. You're going to insert that hook into the next stitch. Yarn over the hook and pull it through that stitch. So now you have a total of 7 loops. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So to make the triangle stitch, you're going to put the yarn over your hook and you're going to pull it through all the loops on your hook. And that is why it's called a triangle stitch. You have your wide bottom and it comes up like a triangle. Okay, so now we're going to chain 2. 1, 2. Now to work the rest of your triangle stitches across, your first leg of your next triangle should be put in the same stitch as the last leg of the one you just made. So this one we went in 3 stitches to start. This one we will be going into the same stitch as the last leg made and the next 2. So we'll do the triangle stitch again, yarn over the hook. You're going to come down and insert it into that same space as this last leg of that last triangle stitch you made. So it goes in that same stitch, yarn over and pull it through that stitch. This is your first leg of your next triangle. You have 3 loops on your hook. So now we're going to do the second leg of our triangle, yarn over the hook. You're going to insert it into that next stitch, yarn over the hook and pull it through that stitch. Now you have 5 loops on your hook, and that's the center leg. There's 3 legs to each triangle. So now we're going to do it again into the next stitch. Yarn over the hook, insert it into that next stitch, yarn over the hook and pull it through the stitch. So now you have a total of 7 loops. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yarn over the hook and pull it through all 7 loops on your hook, and you just made your second triangle stitch. Just remember when you're working this pattern, the first triangle stitch goes into 3 stitches. The rest of the triangle stitches go into the first leg goes into the same space as that last stitch of that triangle, and then in the next 2 stitches. So I'm going to show you again, because if you've never done this, it can be a little confusing. And when you get to the end, let me look at my instructions here just one second. When you get to the end, you should only have 1 stitch remaining. You should only have this 1 single crochet remaining. So if you come over to the end and you have more than this 1 stitch, then I guarantee that you messed up when you were doing your first stitch. You either forgot to put it in that same space as the last bar. So just kind of double check that when you're working across. When you get to that last stitch, if it doesn't match up, then you know that's probably what you've done wrong. Okay, so then we're going to chain 2. This is your repeat across. You're going to chain 2, excuse me, and you're just going to make your triangle stitches across to that last stitch. So we'll do it a couple more times because this is, like I said, a little complicated for the new people. Yarn over the hook. You're going to come down into that same stitch that your last stitch was worked, so follow that leg, that last leg down. Insert your hook front to back. Yarn over the hook and pull it through that stitch. 3 loops on the hook. That's our first leg of our triangle stitch. Yarn over the hook. We're going to make our second leg of our triangle. Insert your hook from front to back into that next stitch. Yarn over the hook and pull it through that stitch. You now have 5 loops on your hook. And now you're going to make your last leg of that triangle stitch. Yarn over the hook, insert it into that next stitch, yarn over the hook and pull it through. You have 7 loops on your hook, 2, 4, 6, and 7. Yarn over the hook and pull it through all 7 loops to form your triangle. You're going to chain 2. I'm going to work this pattern all the way across the row because I think it will help you Usually I just say go ahead and work it across, but I'm just going to go ahead and work with you right across this row. Okay, so here we go again with another triangle stitch. Yarn over the hook, come down and go into that same space that your last stitch was worked. Yarn over the hook and pull it through that stitch. You have 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over the hook, insert it into that next stitch, yarn over the hook and pull it through that stitch. You have 5 loops on your hook. We're working on our last leg, the third leg of our triangle. Yarn over the hook, insert it into that next stitch, yarn over the hook and pull it through. 7 loops on the hook. 2, 4, 6, and 7. Yarn over the hook and pull it through all 7 loops on your hook. You just made your next triangle. You're going to chain 2, yarn over the hook, insert it into that same space as your last stitch worked. Follow that last stitch down, insert your hook in there, yarn over and pull it through that stitch. 3 loops on hook. Yarn over the hook, insert it into the next stitch. That is your center leg. Yarn over the hook and pull it through the stitch. 5 loops on your hook. One more time for the last leg of our triangle. Yarn over the hook, insert it into that next stitch, yarn over the hook and pull it through that stitch. 7 loops on your hook. 2, 4, 6, and 7. Yarn over the hook and pull it through all 7 loops. Your triangle has been made. I think we have 2 more to go if I'm not mistaken. Chain 2, yarn over the hook, insert into that same space as the last stitch of that last triangle stitch was worked, yarn over the hook and pull it through. 3 loops on hook. Our center leg, yarn over the hook, insert it into that next stitch, yarn over the hook and pull it through that stitch. 5 loops on the hook. Now for the last leg of our triangle, yarn over the hook, insert it into that next stitch, yarn over the hook and pull it through the stitch. 7 loops on the hook. 2, 4, 6, and 7. Yarn over the hook and pull it through all loops. Chain 2. We're going to do our next triangle. Yarn over the hook, insert it into that same space as the last leg of the last triangle, yarn over the hook, pull it through the stitch. 3 loops on hook. Yarn over the hook, insert it into that next stitch, yarn over the hook and pull it through that stitch. 5 loops on the hook. Yarn over the hook, insert it into that next stitch, yarn over the hook and pull it through that stitch. 7 loops on your hook. Yarn over the hook and pull it through all loops on your hook. Chain 2, and you'll notice that we have 3 stitches left, which is perfect. You should have 3 stitches left, so when you work your last triangle, you go into the space where your last stitch is and the next 2, which leaves only 1 single crochet remaining. So yarn over the hook, insert it in that same space as the last leg of the last triangle stitch, yarn over the hook and pull it through the stitch. Yarn over the hook, insert it into the next stitch, yarn over the hook and pull it through the stitch. 5 loops on your hook. The last leg of the last triangle, yarn over the hook, insert it into that next stitch, yarn over the hook and pull it through the stitch. 7 loops on your hook. Yarn over the hook and pull through all 7 loops on your hook. So now we're over to our last single crochet of row 2 right here. So to end our row, we are going to chain 1, and then we are going to work a half double crochet into the last single crochet. So yarn over the hook, insert your hook into that last single crochet, yarn over the hook and pull it through the stitch, yarn over the hook and pull it through all 3 loops. So that completes row 2, which row 2 is the hardest row for this pattern. Once you get the hang of this, you'll breeze right through it. Okay, so for row 3, we're going to start, this is going to be a single crochet row, but what you have to watch is with this pattern, I'm trying to read my instructions real quick. I'll just go, you start with a single crochet into this, 1 single crochet into this chain 1 space here, but you have to remember that one end you have 1 single crochet, the other end you will have 2 single crochet. So just pay particular attention to that, or it will mess up your row and your triangles won't match up. So if for some reason your triangles are not matching up and they're off center, then you either put the 2 single crochet where 1 should have been and 1 where the 2 should have been. So just pay particular attention to that one spot of when you start and end your row. Okay, so for row 3, you're going to chain 1. You're going to turn your work. You're going to work a single crochet into this beginning half double crochet. So this was your chain 1, and you're going to insert your hook into the top of that half double crochet, yarn over the hook, pull it through the stitch, yarn over the hook and pull it through 2 loops. You just worked your first single crochet into that beginning half double crochet. And like I said, sometimes when I'm trying to read the instructions, talk and crochet at the same time, sometimes I do get tongue-tied and say the wrong stitch. So I'm just going to go over that again. You chained 1 and you single crochet into this beginning first half double crochet stitch. Now you're going to single crochet into this chain 1 space here between the half double crochet and your triangle stitch. There's a chain 1 here, so you're going to work 1 single crochet in this space. Now you're going to skip your triangle stitch, and I'm going to take my hook out. You're going to skip this triangle stitch and you're going to work 2 single crochet in each chain 2 space across until you get to your last triangle. So I'll show you a couple times how to do it. You should know how to do the single crochet by now. And we're going to stop here, and then I will show you how to finish this row. This isn't very long, so I may just work right across with you. Okay, 2 single crochet into that next chain 2 space. Skip your triangle stitch, work 2 single crochet in this chain 2 space. Skip your triangle stitch and work 2 single crochet into that next chain 2 space. Skip your next triangle, 2 single crochet into your next chain 2 space. Skip your next triangle stitch and work 2 single crochet into that next chain 2 space. Skip your next triangle stitch and work 2 single crochet into that next chain 2 space. You're going to skip your next triangle stitch and work 2 single crochet into that next chain 2 space. So if you're working on a longer piece, that's all you do is just work the 2 single crochet in each chain 2 space until you get to your last triangle stitch. So when you get to the end, then that's when it's a little different. So the chain 2 counts as the first half double crochet, and then you have the chain 1 space here. But to end this round, in order to get our stitch count the same as row 1, so this pattern works out, you need to do 2 single crochet in this space. So work 2 single crochet just in the top of this space between your last triangle and your chain space. So work 2 single crochet, and then you're going to count up. This was a chain 3. Now you just work 2 single crochet over like chain 1 of that chain 3. So now you're going to come up to the second chain. So count up 1, 2, insert your hook into that second chain and work a single crochet. So that is actually the pattern. You will repeat rows 2 and row 3 and continue working to whatever length you desire. That completes our stitch of the week. You'll be repeating row 2 and 3 for your pattern. This is the one sample I have. Rows 2, row 3, row 2, row 3, row 2, row 3. Get creative, use your imagination, experiment with color, experiment with row change, the colors in the rows. You don't have to go every other row. You could go 2 rows with the same color, and every 2 rows change colors. You could do just about anything that you can imagine with your crochet. So experiment a little bit. Thank you for stopping by my channel. I hope you enjoyed this week's Stitch of the Week, the triangle stitch. And please like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.